Welcome, 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 welcome. If you can please take your seats, I would appreciate it so much. We have a fantastic program today. We want to make sure that you all are able to get your questions in and make sure that our panelists are going to be able to have their time to deliver their message. I want to welcome you on behalf of the board members, Manatee Tiger Bay. My name is Xavier Bailey. I am your president and moderator of this particular luncheon. First, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance by our cadet, Captain Pilcher. Please give her a round of applause as she comes forth.
Please put your hands over your heart in honor of our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
I get so excited when the young people come up. I love Sarasota Military Academy, bringing their young people and developing them for leadership. They are our future for tomorrow. Cadet Captain Pilcher, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for your participation. Right now, I would like to recognize, I don't have my list. Can all of my elected officials please stand? That's a good way to do this. If you're a county administrator, please stand. Hey, Jackie, how are you? Wave at me, Jackie. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it. Really quick, I just want to be able to talk a little bit about our Pat Glass Leadership Scholarship Award, okay? And we want to make sure that this award is not only supported and stands for what she stood for, we want to make sure that we're able to give back to our young leaders of tomorrow. This was a very important priority when I became president of Tiger Bay. I am a youth advocate, and I think it's really, really important for us to pour back into our children. So we have started a scholarship committee. We will be doing our first scholarship presentations this year, and we will be begging for your money. And it's okay, you can give us all you want. But I do want to bring up Miss Mary Glass. She's just going to speak for a few minutes. Please give her a round of applause as she comes forward.
Thank you, Xavier, and it won't be a few minutes, but I just want to let you know how honored I know that my mother would be. So many of you were old friends and worked with her over the years and knew her. I know that education was really vital to her. I know she was the first graduate of the interdisciplinary studies at the University of South Florida, and then also got her master's at University of South Florida, so all while raising 5 kids. So, you know, and later a county commissioner for 25 years. So, you know, there was a lot accomplished on her end. I can remember the evening up here where, Xavier, you did the wonderful dinner on her behalf, and I was just remarking to Ron that, you know, it was so good to see a lot of the old guard here. We had Rick Wells, Charlie Wells, Vern Buchanan, just so many great people to show up and turn out for her. She couldn't make it to that event, but she was so honored by it. And I just want to thank Tiger Bay, Xavier, and the group for, you know, this eventual scholarship that we will have in her name at Tiger Bay. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mary. We will be having the Pat Glass Leadership Awards banquet again this year, November. We will not be having a Thursday meeting on that particular week. We will actually be having the meeting. You will be receiving emails because we will be taking suggestions for our awardees, the people that we feel that should be honored and represented Pat Glass's legacy. So thank you again, Mary Glass, for being here. Now it's time to get started. Please turn off your cell phones. No jazz, no R&B, no rap going off while people are talking. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for checking. Thank you so much. So today our topic is Manatee County growing strategically? We will have speakers Meredith Barcombe, Power from Mayaka, Carol Clark from Medallion Homes, Glenn G. with the Uncontained 360, George Cruz, Manatee County Commissioner. Our first speaker will be Meredith Barcombe, Power from Mayaka. Meredith is a Florida native. Meredith was raised in a small town in Maryland in 2003. She returned to Manatee County and lives on a small farm with her husband, Justin, with her 5 children. Meredith also consults with local businesses trying to find a more profitable restructuring strategy. She continues to use her past experience in the community to help Power gain exposure and aid in achieving the goal of smart development. Please welcome Meredith Barcombe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of you today. And again, my name is Meredith Barcombe. I'm the Public Relations Director with POWER, stands for Preserve Our Wildlife, Environment, Resources. We're an organization started in East Manatee County by the residents with the intention to stand up for our rural community and stop this idea that we need to bulldoze, burn, pave, and develop every square inch of Manatee County. There is a future development area boundary line called the FDAB, and the line was to remain intact until 2040. Regardless of when it was established, there was a boundary put in place to preserve and protect the largely agricultural and rural lands of East County. Now we're being told that the population of Manatee County is already coming close to the projected growth numbers for that time, and that people are flocking to our great state and beautiful county. It just doesn't need to be at the expense of current residents' quality of life. I moved from Lakewood Ranch area for a quality of life, to escape congestion and the suburban way of life. And now I'm being forced, along with other Mayaka residents and East County residents, to face the fact that our rural lifestyle may very well become the suburbs. With developers like Neil and Medallion participating in land grabs, we're losing more and more of our beautiful land. Developers have found a way to have the BOCC allow building over the FDAB so long as it meets a certain criteria, and that criteria really seems to support profit. Development occurs without infrastructure. We move families here and overcrowd the schools. We build more, and we create infrastructure later. We don't ride in our roads. We don't let more, so we have more cars on these death traps we call 70 and 64. And then we have been lied to by surface level studies that report claims that proposed developers would not have any adverse effects on the community. A perfect example of this was a recent vote on the concession extension. As at the presentation for the approval by the BOCC last year, we were sold on the idea that building would not flood or affect any of the residents in the bordering areas. As luck would have it, it rained the day before, and residents in groups came in and showed pictures of their flooded land. So clearly that wasn't the fact, and it was voted against. These issues are raised and studies are done, but they're really done at inopportune times. So mind you, all of these proposals have come before the BOCC. Since POWER has formed, we've only seen 2 get rejected. If you live in Bradenton or on the island, you already know how difficult it is to get through the ridiculous gridlock traffic. I deal with it daily in my career. Why would you want to come to the East County and create that issue for us? Our home of Florida panthers, bald eagles, scrub jays, bobcats, gopher tortoises, and hundreds of other amazing creatures are being, they're at risk. Our forests and swamps and open land that prime for hiking, horseback riding, and nurturing our most important Florida asset, nature. Why is it important? We're so eager to put up these carbon copy, ticky-tacky neighborhoods. We're losing Florida in the process. You don't need North Carolina bulldozing the Blue Ridge Mountains, and you don't see Georgia overdeveloping their Outer Banks. Why don't we treasure our natural resources more? Why do we leave the future of East Manatee County to 7 people who all receive campaign donations from the very developers we're losing our way of life to? They argue that the land isn't ours and the landowners chose to sell it, and it's contiguous to land already developed. But what happens next when the land that is developed next to my land is contiguous to my property? When I have a 1,000-home development on my property line, what do? Well, I guess I sell to development because it's contiguous. And my quality of life is gone. And I can shut up, move further along, and the land is contiguous and so on. And maybe it's time we put some focus on our city center, our areas of surrounding downtown Bradenton, and focus on affordable housing that's close to infrastructure needed for lower income families. We don't need more Lakewood Ranch. We love Lakewood Ranch, but we need more, affordable housing, not $500,000 housing. We need to stop focusing on housing upper level class and work on the working level class. Power works to support this idea. We will work with an overlay plan for our current FDAB area and make it hard and inconvenient as possible to continue to push this line east. We will appeal decisions whenever legally possible, and will rally East Manatee County residents to come together and voice their concern about the direction of East Manatee. We also negotiate with the BOCC and project owners for more green space when planning, from ample space for roadways and new builds, for actionable steps to preserve watershed, wetlands, and waterways, parks, and wildlife. Until the message is heard that these considerations must be woven into these projects, we believe the future of the FDAB should be on our ballot. We also think the vast majority of our residents would fight for us if they understood what was happening. Meeting and workshops held during the day when our citizens are at work isn't helpful. They're not educated on this whole process. They serve the developers, not the citizens. It shows that people need more help with these commissioners, and we need to educate our community. So remember, there's power in the people, and we just need to come together and figure out what smart development looks like for our county and how we can respect each individual area, suburb, waterways, all of it, rural. We're all equally important.
Meredith, I heard about you. That was really good. Thank you so much. And I do want to say, I see the amen people are over here. And if someone's name is spoken and you want to come up, hold it for the questions, okay? So if the speaker says your name in their delivery, that's what the questions are for, okay? Thank you so much. Please give her another round of applause. Our next speaker is Carol Clark. Carol Clark is a graduate of
Allegheny College and University of Pennsylvania.
Thank you. During her career, she worked for Manatee County as a director of planning department, Hillsborough County, Pasco County, retiring with 33 years of local government experience. In 2020, she began working with Medallion Homes on comprehensive plan amendments, rezoning, and site plans. She also actively reviews policy proposals presented to and by Manatee County. It is probably fair to say that she does not hesitate to express her opinion. Please welcome Carol Clark.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here to talk about what I like most. And I find myself lately thinking about what has happened since I came here to Manatee County. And part of that is because I am bumping up against things that remind you how long you've been here. Like on Sunday when I was doing my taxes and got to check the elderly deduction. I mean, couldn't it at least be senior? And now that I'm a life member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, which means you're closer to death than birth. So let me tell you how I came here. In 1978, when I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania, it was time to get a job. So I went to a national planning conference and interviewed literally with communities from Florida to Alaska and many places in between. So I didn't leave with a job, but a couple of weeks later, I got home and there was a call from Manatee County saying, we think we've got a job here for you. Now, it was not the Planner 1 job I had interviewed for. It was an assistant planner working in the Community Development Block Grant Program. So I packed up the 1959 Chevy Biscayne, moved to Florida, having never been in the state of Florida. And I thought, okay, it's Florida. People will visit me if I live in Florida. And 43 years later, I'm still living in Bradenton. I have worked in other places, but I have always lived here. So let me tell you a little bit about it, what it was like in 1978. Well, in 1980, the census calculation for Manatee County was 148,000 people, 148,000. And now we're at close, over 400. I-75 was not completed. If you were going from downtown to Rabonia, you have to think about whether you're going to pack a lunch because it seemed so far. And all of that has changed. Now, having never been to Florida, I had visions of what I thought it was going to be like. I thought it would be pastel-colored houses, big white sidewalks, and there wouldn't be anything for a planner to do. Well, that was not true. So I am here representing a pro-development position because that really is what I am. I did not know that when I came to Manatee County. But as I look back, I am glad I ended up in Manatee County that had to deal with issues of growth, because that is so much better than having to deal with the heartbreak of decline. And so I have developed a strategy of supporting growth and change and doing it in a smart way. Now, another little story. When I was growing up outside of Philadelphia, there was a family that lived 4 doors up from us. They had 5 kids, we had 4, and 2 of my sisters and 2 of their girls became best friends, are still best friends forever. So one of the boys, when he and his wife retired, they decided they were going to move to Florida. Their kids had moved away from where they lived, and so they're going to come to Florida. So they did a tour where they're going to live. They focused on the West Coast, but not entirely. So they finished their tour. They go tell their family, we're going to Bradenton, Florida. And Sheila, the sister, goes, that's where Carol lives. So people will come, they will continue to come, and folks can say it was paradise when I got here, but no more. But this will always be somebody's paradise, and we have to reflect that. Now, when I got here, Manatee County had already taken one giant step to deal with their future, and that was the Lake Manatee Reservoir. Discussion about that began in the 1950s. In 1951, the County Commission passed a resolution expressing interest in building a dam and creating a reservoir. And ground was broken on that in 1965. And I don't know it's actually true, but I think it is, that a number of county commissioners were voted out of office because their support for that long-range project. Oh, all of them, George says. However, 50 years later, we are still drinking the benefits of their decision. It's my understanding that Sarasota County had the opportunity to participate in that, and they chose not to. They ended up buying water from Manatee County. There's a similar story on the utility side. In 1980s, Manatee County had a utilities director, Dick Wilford, who said, you know, there are a lot of grants available now for creation of consolidated wastewater systems. We could get folks off of septic tanks and off of package plants and have a system. So the county made that choice and moved forward. Other communities did not. They said, no, if we provide services, we're going to grow. And what happened is they grew anyway. And they grew and they had septic tanks. And by the time they realized they had to do something about it, there were no grants available, so it became that much more expensive. So back to the original question, how should Manatee County deal with the coming future? Well, I'm pro-development, also very pro-planning. That's what needs to be done. There needs to be long-range planning. And it's essential that time be given, time, effort, and priority given to the long-range planning. And it needs to include a shared understanding about what facts are. Now, we may not agree on the outcomes, but we probably can come up with a good understanding of what the facts are. And there needs to be a cold, hard look at what we can change and what, no matter what we do, we're not going to be able to change, and develop strategies to deal with what is likely to happen in the future. We also need to understand how things are interrelated. And that's probably one of the reasons I was drawn to planning, because it's really complicated and messy. I often use the example of it solving simultaneous equations. So everything you do on this side affects the other. I was meeting with a neighbor who didn't like density that we were proposing someplace, so we agreed to disagree. But then she asked me, how can we have more affordable housing? Not understanding any connection between supply and price. And the process of making those choices needs to be open and collaborative. So I'm going to say this to the county: the urgent should not take over the important. Now, I'm one of those people. He was one of those urgent people, and I am bugging them all the time. And I know it's really hard to focus on the important, but it needs to be done. And the way to do that is to take the things that are urgent, the applications and processes, and make those as simple as possible, because that is necessary for economic health. So there needs to be a carve out for that. And I looked at the last major look that the county did on sort of stepping back. That was how will we grow, which was dated February 11th, 2013. So it is time to do that again, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kara. I appreciate you. Please give her another round of applause. Next, we will have Glenn G. with Uncontained 360. Glenn has called Manatee County his home for over 40 years. He is an affordable housing activist with over 40 years of experience in the construction industry. He is the CEO of Uncontained 360 that features entry-level homes and ADUs made from shipping containers. Glenn currently serves on the Affordable Housing Advisory Board of Manatee County. He also does several other things and works very, very closely with the veterans. Please give Glenn a round of applause as he comes forward.
I have to bring my notes. I'm getting old. For the record, Glenn Gibolina.
I love you.
Have you been sworn?
Have I been sworn? Sometimes growth can be painful for folks. The painful growth in our community is workforce housing. Just ask the Alice folks. If we started today, it would still be 20 years behind in development of workforce housing. One modular builder has over 100,000 orders, pre-orders done, and is a 25-year wait list. And I'm on that list. Currently, we're short about 50,000 workforce rentals and home ownership in Manatee County. Overall, we're 7.4 million across the country in workforce housing. When our first responders, school teacher, entry-level management, and certainly the hotel and hospitality industry cannot afford to live in the community they serve, we have a problem. We have a big problem with that. So let's look at some of the solutions that could and should be implemented. Vertical integration of housing market is a start. Why is it so difficult for folks to wrap their heads around vertical integration of housing? Some in this room may think that where you live is a privilege, and if you can't afford to live there, too bad. That's the wrong mindset. Housing is a human right. Some of my best conversations are from entry-level workers in all walks of life, and I'd be honored to have them as my neighbor. The fix. Let's look at the best examples around the country. Austin, Texas, $2 a square foot for residential impact fee, and $10 a square foot for commercial fee. That goes into an affordable housing trust fund. Guess what? Growth has not slowed down, and developers are happy to pay for it. We need to start asking and set that policy here in Manatee County. Look at your tax bill. 3 taxes from the school board alone, yet nothing for affordable housing on the taxes. If all these best practices around the country, not one developer has gone under because of these policies. It has not slowed growth, but what it has done, it has generated tens of millions of dollars for programs that make affordable housing and ownership possible. We have a choice for schools for our children to go to. Why would we want the same opportunity for us? They have hardworking folks live closer to where they work. Let's talk about the district for the moment, the largest employer of the county with a $1 billion budget, school district. The school district gets hundreds of millions of dollars to build new schools. Often the developer will set aside so many acres for a middle school or a high school for the school. Why isn't the school district just saying, give us another 5 acres? We're going to build workforce housing. They haven't done that. So now they have to drive there. You want to stop congestion of our roads and bridges? This is just one example what the school district should be doing. They have not. They should partner up with affordable housing developers like Chaff. Jake Showers is here today, so is Joe. Thank you so much. Those are the professional developers that do workforce housing. They should be integrated into every project. I've brought this up to the school district many times, and they refuse to acknowledge that we have a housing crisis, largest employer in the county. Another school district is underutilizing our current schools. You look at Wakeland. Wakeland, that's been closed for years. It sits on 19 acres, a beautiful campus. Dr. Hopes and I went to look at it. They haven't done anything with it. We've brought in private development there and say, here, we want to do this, won't cost you anything, we'll do affordable housing, your bus drivers work across the street. They don't want to hear about it. The school district lacks vision to see the benefits of many alternatives. So that's one thing that we have to do. So we have to reutilize the schools we have and use the property that we have. Another example, vacant land. It's a premium, right? Next to Bayshore High, we have 15 acres. Been sitting vacant for over a decade where the old MTC campus was. Why aren't we doing anything with that? We have 2 huge parking lots. We could put student housing. We can put dormitories, entry-level apartments. Hell, on the 15 acres, we could put a solar farm on there and be at net zero, not only for the high school, but State College of Florida across the street. It's unacceptable that the school district hoards this property, does not use it for the best interest. And they need to be called out on it. This is prime example. Let me see here. So anyways, we need to manage our property better. And you know, the county can do more as well, okay? George is a big proponent of the missing middle. So am I. Form-based code. So am I. The city of Bradenton has it. The county doesn't. We can do a lot. We should mimic the city on form-based code. Another area, tiny houses. We don't have any. Why not? We need to do that. The missing middle, you can take a vacant infill lot, and I am big on infill lots. I think it's the missing middle that we need to start developing. So you can put a missing middle house in the middle of the block, looks like the current house, may have a couple extra doors, but you get 2 or 3 different apartments in that same looking house. You don't disturb the neighborhood. And we've got a ton of vacant lots that we need to start utilizing. If you look at the vacant lots, everything's there. Because at one time it had a house on it, the water, the sewer, and the electric's there. That saves the developer 40 grand right off the bat. Why do we have so many vacant lots, not only within the city, but the county as well? We need to start developing those lots. We must now stop kicking the can down the road like we've done for decades. Let's implement the best practices out there and generate millions of dollars for workforce housing we so desperately need in our community. I want to thank George and Tiger Bay for this opportunity to speak, and for the folks that came out to find out how we grow from here, vertically. For the record, Glenn Gibolina.
Is that for me? Okay. Thank you so much, Glenn. Could you please give him another round of applause? Next, we have up George Cruz, Commissioner for District 7 at large for Manatee County. George's primary focus on the board is housing, growth, and job creation. He has spent the last 20 years focusing on commercial real estate, primarily on the finance and private equity sides of the industry. His passion for affordable housing initiatives started as an analyst with a low-income housing tax credit fund and has continued as the Sadowski Fund affiliate, a current member of the Manatee County Affordable Housing Advisory Board. Please give him a round of applause as he comes forward.
All right. Thank you all for being here. Glad we can all come back for Tiger Bay after all that time on Zoom. And we've been talking a lot about development here. We've talked about slower growth, more growth, affordable growth. And the funny thing is the title of this panel is about growth. So the immediate response for everyone in Manatee County, because it's what's in the newspapers and what we talk about, is growth relative to real estate. And 3 years ago, I was up here on a panel for Tiger Bay, on a panel called Is Growth in Manatee County Inevitable? And the questions were the same we're going to get here. It's the obvious. How many people are moving here? How many homes do we need to accommodate them? Are we putting too many people here and ruining our quality of life? And you can have your views on this, but you have to understand your reality. The reality is, since that panel just 3 years ago, over 25,000 new residents have moved to Manatee County. We're the 6th fastest growing county in the state of Florida with an overall growth rate of 32.9% since 2010. And we're outpacing all of our neighbors like Sarasota, which used to grow faster than us, and now everyone's moving here. But I have to ask you a question. Other than the obvious regarding the congestion on the roads, and maybe you see a few less cows as you drive downtown, let me ask you, in those 3 years, with 25,000 more people moving here, do you feel that Manatee County is any different today than it was prior to everyone showing up? I'll go one further. Do you feel our community is meaningfully different today than in 2010 with 32.9% growth? Because the real question I have here when we put this panel together is not our growth relative to housing, but did we expand our community with all these new entrants, or do we just simply expand our population? Because regardless what you read on Facebook or hear in the not in my backyard people, growth at its core is not about houses and retail and bricks and roads. It's not about urban sprawl or FDAB lines. Growth, in its essence, is about community. The real question here today, as I see it, is not, are we building strategically? It's, are we growing our community strategically? Are we growing just for growth's sake, or are we consciously growing in a way that encourages societal and economic diversification? With each new resident, are we expanding our wage bases, our employment opportunities, or our cultural options for the next generation? Are we growing in a way that encourages diversity in our area to positively expand our community? In the end, are we growing our community in a way that is beneficial and sustainable for the long-term viability of Manatee County? And if you frame the question in that way, I will say 100% no. Manatee County has not and is not growing strategically. The growth plan in Manatee County is centered around being reactive rather than taking a proactive approach. How can you plan for houses and parks and services for a community if you don't even have a plan of who you're going to provide them for? Do we want to simply be another bedroom community like Brandon, Valrico? If so, keep building rooftops as far as the eye can see. But I promise you, once we're built out, that's all Manatee County is ever going to be. You're never going to get that back. But do we want more for our future? We as a community need to decide what we want to be in 10 years, 50 years, 100 years from now. Do we want to continue with our current lower wage, cyclical employment basis centered around tourism and construction and services, sectors that are presently pricing their employees out of our housing market? Or do we want to make a concerted effort to attract real, sustainable industry and employment to Manatee County? Do we want to continue staying up in average age? Or do we want to start providing the community amenities, the mentoring, and the smaller urban units that young professionals desire to retain and by extension, that the employers we want to attract here are going to look for in a workforce. Do we want to continue to build further and further away and watch our infrastructure get further and further taxed, or do we want to start incentivizing development where it's beneficial to both our infrastructure and our residents? Do we want to discourage construction and supply and continuously drive up our cost of living to the detriment of our teachers, our first responders, and our service workers? Because as they leave our community, so too do all of the services they're going to provide all of you. These are the questions we as a community need to be asking ourselves, because there's still hope. We have a landmass 20% larger than Sarasota, yet a smaller population. Our density is only 580 people per square mile. That's compared to 820 people per square mile in Sarasota, over 1,000 people per square mile in Lee County, over 1,500 in Hillsborough, and a whopping 3,600 people per square mile in Pinellas County. We haven't even begun to utilize virtually any of our urban core and our city centers where we could be housing people closer to their employment centers, closer to our current infrastructure, closer to the services that they want. We're still playing in the first innings here in Manatee County, not the last. And you need to remember that. This is not a lost cause, this is an opportunity. We could start planning for the growth we want and not just the growth we have. We could start proactively attracting accretive growth rather than treating all growth like it's a detriment to our community. We can accommodate growth, strategic, smart growth. Growth in Manatee County that will enhance the future of our community and contribute to the quality of life for all of our residents. Manatee County can start growing strategically, but we have to start now. Thank you.
Good job, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, this is the time for your questions. To ask the question, you must be a member of the Manatee Tiger Bay Club. To become a member today, you can wave your hand. Thank you, she's right there. Go ahead, you can give her money and you may ask your $100 question. Give us your name if you are a member and state your question and to which speaker you want to direct your question to. If it is to the entire panel, please let us know it is for the entire panel. Members, you are allowed, please allow everyone a chance to ask a question. You are limited to 30 seconds. Please do not elaborate. If you have a question at this moment, please come to the microphone. No one has a question?
Come on. All righty then.
Here comes trouble.
My name is Dr. James Whitman, and I am a recipient of the coveted Tiger by the Tail Award. May you all be a recipient someday. Okay, so I've been having these discussions with various county commissioners since 2005. And when I've asked, well, I don't understand. These big subdivisions got approved by the county commission unanimously. How does this happen without any citizen input? And what I've been told is, oh, well, we have this comprehensive plan that we have to abide by. And so I'm saying, where does that plan come from? This is the question.
That's the question.
Where does that plan come from? Where is the public input for it? How often is it revised? Thank you very much. This is for George.
George, this question is for you. If any of the panelists would like to add, you may also add too. Go ahead, George.
Sure. Well, the comprehensive plan is required by the state of Florida, and we do have one, as well as a future land map. Our original plan was written in 1989, and it's been revised here and there, it's always looked at. We have to make modifications, whether the state of Florida tells us we have to add something about peril of flood or add something about some other aspect of our community, we add those in. And as changes occur relative to zoning, or we submit text amendments for comp plans, like some of the things that Meredith was talking about, it gets modified. So it's an ever-evolving living document. It's not a firm thing that was written in 1989 and 30 years later we still abide by it, per se. In a perfect world, and I've had this discussion, well, Dr. Hope's left, I've had this discussion, that should be meaningfully reviewed and modified on a more regular basis than once every 30 years. Spot changing a comp plan is a terrible way of doing anything in a community. So I've been a big proponent. In fact, back during my campaign a couple of years ago, I got a lot of heat on Facebook because somebody asked me what's the first thing I would do to change with the comp plan, and I said I'd put it in a shredder. I obviously was joking, but the point was it needs to be modified because you can't just keep waiting for the next person to put in an amendment to modify one step of it. We need to start looking ahead, as Glenn was saying. You know, form-based code is great. It's going to be very difficult for the size of Manatee County. It's usually worked in a city, but the reality is we've had 30 years of growth and experience. We see what Manatee County has become, which is very different than 30 years ago. At what point do we take a step back and say, okay, how are we going to encourage redevelopment in West Bradenton along the old CRA corridors? How are we going to encourage urban core development? We need to start looking at how we want to structure Manatee County in the future and pre-modifying, I'll say, the comp plan now to encourage the development where we as a community feel it's best suited for us today and our residents in the future.
What about citizen input?
Well, when we wrote that last one, and Carol would probably be able to speak better than I would on this, you know, there was a considerable amount of citizen input. I mean, we always open it up for citizen input. The reality is, to your point, I know you kind of said it half in jest, but the reality is once the comp plan is created and the future land use map is developed, we are bound by that. And I know people don't like to hear that, but that's Florida statute. That's just reality. Even if we vote no on something that conforms 100% to our comp plan, they're just going to sue us, they're going to build it anyway, and then we're out money. That's just how it works.
The citizen input, was involved in the 1990 comprehensive plan, but I was involved as a citizen because I was working for Hillsborough County at the time. And I was on the Citizens Land Use Advisory Committee. So there were committees that started in 1986, 87 that met weekly to go over things that were of issue. And staff would bring things, we'd make recommendations. And there were times that actually the county had meetings on Saturdays to look at maps and make input. I don't think there has been that large of an effort of going out and talking. We really have been fairly reactive. When somebody proposes something, we react. So I think it's time to do that. Let's go out and have that discussion. There was an effort called Imagine Manatee in the mid-2000s, which did go out and do that. But it wasn't really a wholesale look at sort of the plan itself. It was more on what Commissioner Cruz was talking about, you know, what kind of things do we want? How do we imagine our future to be?
Thank you, Carol.
So I want to touch on the citizen aspect of this as well. And I think something that is drastically missing is an education in how citizens can be active. I was completely ignorant to the process of how this all went before I joined Power. I knew what I didn't like, I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know how to achieve that. And what you see when these builders are proposing these developments are these signs that are maybe a little bigger than this. They're yellow, and they're on the side. Well, when you're driving 55, 60 miles an hour, they don't seem that big. And then, exactly. And at the end of the day, you get an agenda from the BOCC that this is what's going to be on the agenda for sure on Tuesday for a Thursday meeting. So we as a community need to learn. I mean, you know, we learn about world politics, country politics, right? We need to learn about local politics. And I think that's groups like Power's job. You'll see Carol Feltz talk about that a lot, is educating our community about how we can be involved. It's hard for working families to take off time to be at these meetings and even, know to write in. So that's something that we're missing as a community, I think, at no fault of the BOCC, obviously. That's on us. As community activists, we need to be more involved.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next question, please. So, I got this. I am a realtor with Michael Saunders, and I would like the panel's thoughts on this. We have over 1,000 people moving to Florida every single day. Most of my people that I'm working with happen to be buyers that are from out of state. And they're coming to Florida like crazy. They're going online and they're seeking out Manatee County all over the place. And I asked the question, why Manatee County? He says, it's beautiful. And then they go to Sarasota and then they compare prices, and we're more affordable than Sarasota. So what do you think about, even though they're building, I see all of the different homes going up. George and I had a conversation about the Dollar General going up in my neighborhood, but I'm okay now because it's convenient when I forgot something and it was there. But what would you tell the community that, for those of you who are concerned about the growth, about all these people that are coming to our area? Where does that come in? How do our citizens get informed about the numbers that are rising, where the people who are building, they need somewhere to stay. But we still need an affordable housing part of it, because the homes are pretty hefty, and a lot of these people are retiring, but we also have teachers coming. We also have people that are firemen and police officers that are just moving to Florida also because they love what Florida is doing. They love our economics. They love our policies. That's why they're moving. And some of them say we're moving here because of the politics. It is what it is. But what would you say about that? What would be your concerns, or what would you tell someone who is against growth? And those of you, what would you say to the people who are providing the homes for those teachers? Do we need more homes for the services?
For the record, Glenn Giblina. So yes, money. It all revolves around money. It's real simple. We've got these people up north coming in, spending 10, 20% over asking price. The people that live here and work here cannot match that nor qualify for that. So we need to start incorporating. If we had the money, we could build workforce housing. If we had the property and partnered up, we can continue to build workforce housing. And that's only going to come by impact fees. I'll give you an example. I asked for a 50-cent per square foot impact fee on all the houses. It would generate several $1 million. Oh no, that's just a tax. I said, well, if you take the 50 cents times a $3,000 square foot, it's $1,500. Folks, those guys that are buying those houses for $400 and $500, they're spending that on a change order for their bathroom faucets. It's not going to affect anything. But we're so dependent on, Tallahassee is sending the Sadowski funds. They've rated that by 50%. They tried to scam another $40 million a couple of weeks ago. Thank God DeSantis vetoed that. But you cannot depend on Tallahassee to raise funds for affordable housing. You have to do that through impact fees. You look, again, you go down to Naples, you know what they do? They go to develop, you want 100 houses, 10 of those have to be affordable. Well, what do you mean? Well, if you sell it for $400,000 and HUD says $225,000, you need to pay $175,000 into our affordable housing fund so we can give that money to someone that can qualify and live in that neighborhood. Not one development slowed down. They're willing to pay. We just need to ask them. We need to increase the impact fees and have them. Look at your taxes. We've got mosquito control, 3 taxes from the school district. We have nothing for affordable housing. All these developments, they want the best service from the sheriff, EMS, the fire department. They want the best school teachers. But at the end of the day, you got to drive out of that walled community because you can't afford to live there. That mindset's got to change. So I say increase the impact fees. It's not going to slow up these developers one bit, no matter how much they cry to the dais. Thank you.
I don't exactly agree with that. And part of the reason is I don't know of any other industry where they're asked to provide something like that. If a grocery store opens up, you don't say, okay, I want you to reserve a certain amount of your product for somebody who has certain income requirements. So it's a little bit different. However, I think it's all of our responsibility, and I would have no problem seeing a tax for affordable housing because I think it's a shared responsibility as a community, not something that just belongs to people who just move here.
Here's the thing with affordable housing or workforce housing, attainable housing, whatever you want to call it. 1,000 people a day are moving to Florida, and about 8,000 to 10,000 people a year are moving to Manatee County. Back in 2007, 8, we had a massive downturn. Nobody built anything until about 2012, 13 again. You couldn't get financing for it, and there was too much inventory of foreclosed homes and available units. So we got behind the 8 ball, and it's not Manatee County specific, it's the state of Florida, most of the country, got behind the 8 ball because we stopped building. And because we stopped building, we're trying to catch up, but there's only so much labor, only so much material, only so much land as land prices are going up, that we're still catching up from previously. So there's a supply-demand issue, and that's what I kind of referred to earlier. We have an opportunity to see how do we want to develop Manatee County. Unfortunately, right now, the low-hanging fruit, because there's a lot of land out east and a lot of land up north, is just, it's real easy to shoo 6 cows away and knock 3 trees down, and now you got a subdivision. It's a lot harder to figure out a redevelopment, along 14th Street and create something that's meaningful to the community as a whole. And so it's not so much just make somebody pay, and I'm not 100% against what Glenn's saying specifically, but it's more encouraging people to build what we need and what we want without using tax dollars, because I can do that. Air's free. I can let you go 20 stories up instead of 10 stories up. I can let you have 50. Sarasota, as a perfect example, had Rosemary. It was homeless. It was drug addicts. There was a couple of nice restaurants moved there. They all moved away because it was a blighted area of their downtown. What did they do? They came in and said, instead of 25 units an acre, we're going to make it 50. Know what happened? Nobody built anything. So they went back and said, you know what, let's make it 75 units an acre for the first 1,800 units to come out of the ground. 1,800 units came out of the ground in like 24 months. They just said, okay, this is where we need development. This is where our community benefits from development. We need to keep providing more and more incentive until people build us what we want. We don't have to pay them to do it. They'll do it voluntarily. If I can come up with the right structure to convince Medallion Homes to come out here and build me a bunch of 500 square foot studio apartments for young professionals and for single teachers that even at $1.50 a foot, it's only $750 a month, they'll do it all day long if I provide them enough incentives from a density and a height and benefits relative to parking ratios and impact fees. They'll do it because it's beneficial to them. It's profitable to them. And I don't care how greedy you want to call a developer. If a developer is using that greed to build me what I want, that's a win-win for our community. So that's how we need to structure growing Manatee County, is getting people to build what we want. And the only way we're going to do that is figure out what we want our community to look like and where we need to put them. And that's what I am actively working on right now, actually. So thanks.
I think the housing boom is kind of a national thing. I mean, I have family in Maryland and New York, and granted, Florida's its own little community. It's huge. I'll say, it's not just about moving cows, no pun intended. When we go from Mayaca, I'm sorry, my dream is to be a Jungle Boat cruise director, okay? When we go into Sarasota, which is where we tend to hang out, we love it for the rooftop bars, all of the restaurants, all of the nightlife, and I'm looking right there, and that's what young working people want, that rooftop bar right there. They want to go out. There's like one little strip with the Rue and all that stuff here. We can make downtown amazing with more farmers market and arts and culture. That is what brings money. That is what brings working class. That is what brings all of it. My sister-in-law is a police officer in Volusia County, one of the lowest counties that pay in this state. And she would love to come over here, but even with DeSantis's $3,000 extra a year, that $10,000 more a year she'd make on the Manatee County Police Department would not touch the housing cost for her. That is why she doesn't live near her mom and her nephews and her nieces, is because it's too expensive. City centers sell. That's why Sarasota's popular. That's why people come to Manatee when they cannot afford to live in Sarasota. Who wants that title? I want people to come to Manatee County because it's an art central location, it's vibrant, and there's life. We don't just want to be retirees, we want retirees and young people. And the way you achieve that is by creating a cultural hub. And that has to include affordable housing and business. And we just don't have enough of that to make it that desirable location yet. And that's what I think we need to focus on. When you go out east, you're spreading things out, like George was saying, and that's a cost to the county. You know, that's more buses going 45 minutes out for kids that are already not getting to school during first period. So focus in town first, and then we push it out as time needs and as we smart develop and plan. So.
Thank you so much for your patience.
Alice Newland, member through League of Women Voters. I have a question about infill. We have members that are active in affordable housing, like Habitat for Humanity, and the projects are extremely slow. There is a lot of problems getting them moving and enough of them. And so what's going to be done to make it easier for these organizations or a developer that wants to do infill development instead of just bulldozing, as Meredith said, more trees and stuff like that to do the infill, but make the infill affordable?
Thank you. Who's your question for?
I think it's probably for both Carol and George, because Carol works for a developer that pretty much bulldozes.
I'll take it first, and then you could talk about your land raising business. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm trying to focus on. The problem with the infill is we don't have any incentive or structure or comp plan, to the point of the comp plan, to do it. Like, you go drive down 14th, drive over here where the old CRAs, you know, or go out further west. Everyone wants to keep talking about, and I had this conversation earlier today, about development, but in a perfect world, it's not so much development, it's redevelopment. Development's easy. Development's just land. I can go out, I could be a home builder with like a 6-week class online and build if you just give me like raw land that's already cleared. Redevelopment's difficult, but redevelopment's beneficial to the community. We need to start, to Glenn's point, a form-based code across the entire county is onerous, but pockets of form-based code, pockets of rezoning areas ahead of time, because a lot of the cost of homes is because someone buys some property, it takes them 12 to 18 months just to get through the gauntlet to be able to build anything, and you don't even know if you can. You're trying to get density changes and zoning changes, and you're hiring engineers and attorneys. If you start going out now saying this is where development should be in Manatee County, we're gonna rezone this. We're gonna adjust the height, the density, the zoning for this day one. It's almost essentially as of right. Here's form-based code. This is your facade, this is your height, this is your parking ratio. You're going to get developers coming in and doing meaningful, massive redevelopment because it's prime for it. We have a lot of aging stock in West Bradenton and in South Bradenton that should just be razed to the ground and redone, or a lot of buildings that could be repurposed and expanded upon at a fraction of the cost of some of the stuff out east, and much closer to existing 4- and 6-lane infrastructure, already on our utility lines, walking or biking distance from Tropicana, Bells, downtown, IMG, all the places where people are going to work. That is how we need to do this and focus on it, because regular development is going to get old. Regular development is just going to be one single-family home after another, and you have, by definition, you have to go further and further away, which puts that many more cars on the road. It's that much more expensive from a transportation to get into town, and we have to keep extending services that direction. Put people here, we don't have to do anything. We just have to let them do it. And all the services and all the utilities and all the infrastructure is already in place. Redevelopment is how Manatee County has to grow in the future if we want to be sustainable.
I'm not sure she actually called me out. I think actually, I agree with a lot of what George said. I think that is important. There are different types of how people approach development and what they do. We do not do redevelopment. Would we look at that in the future? Perhaps, but that's not what we do. But I think it's also important, as you said, to recognize what we have institutionally in place in terms of our codes and so forth that put you through a certain path. For example, the county tried to encourage not using planned development. And I'm going to be a little wonky here, but planned development is where you have to come up with a specific plan for what you're doing. You establish the zoning criteria in terms of lot widths and so forth. They try to encourage people going and using what they call standard zoning districts. So you have them established, you get approved, and it's a simpler process. However, it doesn't work because those dimensional requirements in the land development code don't work for anybody. They just don't work. And I looked at it, and I looked at cases from 2018 to 2020, residential rezones, less than 100 acres were rezoned to something other than a planned development project. And some of those were actually people going from R something to A1. So less than 100 acres of what was looked at was not planned development. That requires a lot more. So coming up with standards that work and encouraging that, I think, is a great idea.
Thank you so much. The time has come. I want to thank you all for attending the luncheon. Please give all of our speakers another round of applause. Thank you to all of the directors and program committee. We really, really appreciate you. The next luncheon will be on the 24th of next month. We invite you to become a corporate, nonprofit, or individual member. Remember, we are actually looking for donations for our scholarships now, so we would appreciate, let me know if you can help us out with that. If you are interested in submitting a topic and speakers you would like to hear, please email Tanya at admin@Manatee Tiger Bay, or you can go to the website, or you can notify me. Pier 22 provides complimentary valet parking for our luncheons. I want to thank the news media really quick, Charles Clapsaddle and METV crew for taping and broadcasting our forum on METV channels and YouTube. You will be able to find that in at least 48 hours on the website, metvweb.com. Also, thanks to our additional media, Telemundo, Herald Tribune, The Observer, and WUSF, and the Bradenton Herald. Thank you so much for coming. I am Xavier Bailey. Have a great day.